The sky burned orange as another city fell. Ambassador stood at the tall window of the High Council chamber, her thin blue fingers pressed against the glass. Below her, the crystal towers of Lumen still sparkled in the fading light, but on the horizon she could see the darkness spreading. The swarm moved like a living shadow across her world, eating everything in its path. They were not fighters. They had never been fighters. For 3,000 years, they lived in peace under the protection of the Galactic Accord. They built beautiful cities that floated among the clouds. They created art and music and poetry. They believed that violence was something primitive species did before they learned better ways. Now they were dying because of that belief. Turned away from the window, the council chamber was full of frightened faces. 12 elders sat around the curved table, their bioluminescent skin flickering with stress patterns. They looked to her for answers, but she had none to give. The Accord response, she asked, though she already knew. Elder checked the console in front of him. His voice shook when he spoke. 47 standard cycles. They say their nearest fleet is engaged in another sector. They express their deep concern for our situation. Deep concern, repeated, the words tasted bitter. We will be dead in 12 cycles, our entire species, gone, and they express concern. No one answered. What could they say? The swarm had appeared without warning. Billions of parasitic creatures falling from the sky like black rain. They consumed organic matter with terrible speed. Plants, animals, they did not care. They ate and spread. Already 30% of surface was gone, just gone, nothing left but gray dust and silence. Walked to the communications console. Her hands moved across the controls, opening channels she was not supposed to open, frequencies that the Accord had marked as forbidden. Ambassador, Elder said carefully, those channels reach the quarantine sector. I know. The zone, the humans. I know. The elders shifted uncomfortably. Every species in the galaxy knew about humans. They came from a world called Earth, a Category 9 where everything tried to kill everything else. The gravity was crushing. The atmosphere was poison. The planet itself shook and burned and flooded without warning. And somehow, humans had not only survived there, they had thrived. When the Accord made first contact with humanity 200 years ago, they had been horrified. Humans were strong, aggressive, and frighteningly adaptable. They healed from wounds that would kill other species. They could eat foods that were toxic to most life forms. They thought nothing of jumping from high places or swimming in deep water or exposing themselves to extreme temperatures. The Accord had quarantined them immediately. Too dangerous, they said. Too unpredictable. Let them stay in their little corner of the galaxy until they learned to be civilized. Had accepted this wisdom her whole life. Now, watching her world die, she found she no longer cared about wisdom. She opened all frequencies and spoke clearly into the communicator. To any who hear this message, this is Ambassador of the High Council. Our world is under attack. The swarm is consuming our planet. The Galactic Accord cannot help us in time. We are dying. She paused, her voice breaking slightly. Please, if anyone can hear this, we need help. Anyone, please. She ended the transmission and sat down heavily. The other elders stared at her with wide, frightened eyes. They did not criticize her. They were too scared to criticize anything anymore. Hours passed. The darkness on the horizon grew closer. Reports came in from the outer cities, each one worse than the last. Millions dead. Entire regions consumed. They had no weapons, no soldiers, no way to fight back. They could only run, and soon there would be nowhere left to run. Then the console beeped. Almost fell as she rushed to answer it. The signal was coming from the quarantine sector, from Earth space. A human voice filled the chamber. It was a female voice, young and casual, as if she were discussing the weather. This is Lieutenant of the Earth vessel Hammer of Dawn. We received your distress call. Admiral wants me to tell you that the fleet is already moving. We have 17 ships en route to your position. ETA is 11 hours. Can you hold on that long? His mouth opened, but no words came out. 11 hours. The Accord needed 47 cycles, but the humans would be here in 11 hours. Ambassador, the human voice prompted, You still there? Yes, managed. Yes, we are here. We can hold 11 hours. We can hold. Good. The Admiral also wants me to ask about tactical data on the swarm. Numbers, movement patterns, hive locations, anything you've got. Send it over and we'll start planning the party. The party. Sorry, human expression. The attack. We'll start planning the attack. Quickly ordered her staff to compile all available data on the. As they worked, she asked the question that burned in her mind. Lieutenant, why? Why are you coming? We are strangers to you. The Accord has kept our peoples apart. You owe us nothing. There was a pause. When spoke again, her voice was softer but still carried that strange human confidence. You asked for help, Ambassador. That's reason enough. Just hold on, the fleet's coming, and trust me, they have no idea what's about to hit them. The transmission ended. Looked at her fellow elders. Their expressions were mixed, hope and fear in equal measure. They had called for aid and something had answered, something from a world of death and danger, something the galaxy feared. She did not know if she should feel saved or doomed. But for the first time in days, she felt something other than despair. Outside, the darkness kept spreading, but now, somewhere in the void, lights were moving toward, 17 ships full of. The humans were coming. The human ships were ugly. Ambassador watched them emerge from hyperspace on the main display screen, and her first thought was that they looked like they had been built by angry children. No smooth lines, no elegant curves, just hard angles and thick armor plates and what appeared to be old battle damage that no one had bothered to repair. 17 vessels hung in orbit above. They did not broadcast the standard diplomatic greetings. They did not request permission to enter space. They simply arrived as if they owned the stars themselves. Receiving transmission, announced the communications officer. A human face appeared on screen. Male, middle-aged, with gray hair at his temples and a long scar running across his jaw. His eyes were calm and steady, like someone who had seen terrible things and learned to live with them. Ambassador, I am Admiral of the Earth Expeditionary Fleet. My people have reviewed your tactical data. We are ready to begin operations immediately. He spoke simply and directly, wasting no words. I am requesting permission to commence orbital bombardment of swarm-heavy zones, followed by ground assault on the central hive structure. Felt her stomach twist. Orbital bombardment of our own planet. Targeted strikes only. We need to thin their numbers before my Marines land. The swarm is too thick in some areas for direct engagement. But the damage to our cities, our forests, will be less than what they will do if we wait. His voice was not unkind, but it was firm. Ambassador, I understand this is difficult, but my people did not travel 11 hours to watch your species die. We came to fight. Let us fight. Looked at the elders around her. They were pale with fear, but they nodded. What choice did they have? Permission granted, Admiral. Thank you. Bombardment begins in 10 minutes. I suggest your people take shelter. He paused, and something like a smile crossed his face. And Ambassador, try not to worry too much. This isn't even the worst Tuesday we've had. The screen went dark before could ask what a Tuesday was. The bombardment was terrifying. Pillars of fire fell from the sky, striking the dark zones where the swarm was thickest. The ground shook even in lumen, hundreds of kilometers away. Watched the displays showing impact after impact, each one erasing a piece of her world. But also erasing the swarm. The died in thousands, then millions. The orbital strikes were precise, hitting only the areas already lost to the parasites. It was brutal and efficient, and realized with growing unease that the humans were very, very good at destruction. Then came the ground assault. Drop pods fell from the human ships like metal rain, hundreds of them, plunging directly into swarm-infested territory. Could not believe what she was seeing. They are landing in the hot zones, Elder whispered. They will be torn apart. But they were not torn apart. They had accessed the human ground forces camera feeds at Admiral's invitation. What they saw changed everything they thought they knew about the universe. Human soldiers poured out of the drop pods wearing heavy armored suits. They moved with shocking speed for creatures their size, and they attacked with a ferocity that makes blood run cold. Leading the assault was a woman called Sergeant Major. She was built like a combat vehicle, all muscle and armor, and she carried a weapon almost as big as herself. Her voice boomed over the communications channel as she charged into the swarm. "Contact front, light them up, boys and girls." The humans opened fire. Organisms exploded into pieces. The creatures tried to swarm the soldiers, climbing over each other to reach them, but the humans did not retreat. They pushed forward, step by bloody step, cutting through the like they were nothing. "On your left, Menu," someone shouted. A young soldier spun and fired, cutting down a wave that had tried to flank him. "Thanks, I owe you a drink." "You owe me 12 drinks." They were joking. They were fighting for their lives against an alien swarm on a strange world, and they were joking with each other. Notice something else strange. When a human soldier got injured, and some did get injured, they kept fighting. One Marine took a spine through his arm and simply pulled it out, cursed loudly, and continued shooting. Another was knocked down by a charging organism and got back up laughing, saying something about needing to hit the gym more. Doctor, the fleet's medical officer, appeared on a separate channel to explain what they were seeing. "Human bodies are extremely durable by galactic standards," she said. Her tone was professional, almost bored, as if she gave this lecture often. "Our bones are dense. Our muscles are strong. We heal quickly from wounds that would kill most species. We can function through pain that would cause others to shut down." "But how?" asked. "How did you become this way?" Earth said simply. "Our planet tried to kill us every single day. The ones who could not survive did not pass on their traits. The ones who could." She gestured at the screens showing the battle. "You are looking at what 10,000 generations of survival made." On the surface, Sergeant Major had reached a nest. The creatures poured out of it in endless waves, but she did not slow down. "Push through," she roared. "We stop when they're all dead." Her soldiers followed without hesitation. They trusted her completely, and she trusted them. Could see it in how they moved, how they covered each other, how they fought as one organism made of many parts. By the end of the first day, the humans had cleared 3 major infestation zones. They were being pushed back for the first time since they arrived. Admiral contacted that evening. He looked tired but satisfied. "First phase complete, Ambassador. We have established a perimeter around your capital city. The swarm will not reach Lumen." Admiral struggled to find words. "Your soldiers, they fight like nothing I have ever seen. They do not seem afraid." Consider this for a moment. They are afraid, Ambassador, every single one of them. Fear keeps you sharp, keeps you alive. The difference is that humans do not let fear stop them. We feel it, acknowledge it, and then do what needs to be done anyway. Why risk so much for people you do not know?" The Admiral's expression softened slightly. "Because you needed help, and because my people remember what it was like when no one would help us. We will not let others feel that alone." He straightened. "Now, if you will excuse me, I need to plan tomorrow's assault. We have located the central hive. It is time to end this." The screen went dark. Sat in silence for a long time, watching the human soldiers make camp in the ruins of her world. They were laughing around small fires, sharing food and stories like they were on some kind of adventure. She thought they called them like it was an insult. Now she understood it was simply the truth. The Galactic Accord was in chaos. On Station Prime, the massive space station that served as the center of galactic government, representatives from 100 species crowded into the Grand Assembly Hall. They pushed and shouted and waved their various limbs in anger. The holographic displays showed footage of human soldiers tearing through the swarm like it was nothing. A tall being from the Federation stood at the central podium and demanded order. "This is unacceptable," he clicked in his harsh native language, translated instantly for all present. "The humans have violated the quarantine. They have entered Accord space without permission. They must be stopped immediately." "Stopped?" Ambassador of the delegation floated forward, her jellyfish-like body pulsing with agitation. "The humans are saving the the same that we abandoned to die. We did not abandon them. Our fleets were engaged elsewhere. Our fleets are always engaged elsewhere when species like the need help. His voice dripped with contempt. Small species, weak species, species that have nothing to offer, we let them wait, and die. The hall exploded into argument again. The humans did not care about politics. They had a job to do. Sergeant Major gathered her soldiers for the morning briefing. They stood in neat rows among the ruins of what had once been a garden, their armor scratched and dented from yesterday's fighting. None of them looked worried. "Listen up," said her voice cutting through the dawn air. "Today we push for the hive. Intelligence says the main structure is underground about 30 kilometers from here. That's where the swarm queen is. That's where we end this." A young soldier raised her hand. Private was barely 19 years old, with bright eyes and a smile that never seemed to fade no matter how bad things got. She had signed up for the military right after school, wanting adventure. She had found more than she bargained for. "Sergeant Major, how big is the hive?" "Big, very big. The tunnels go down at least 2 kilometers. It's going to be close fighting in dark spaces. Exactly the kind of party I like," grinned, showing her teeth. "Any other questions?" "What about extraction?" asked Corporal Menu, the young pilot who had been assigned to ground duty after his fighter was damaged in the orbital assault. "Admiral has dropped ships standing by. When we plant the charges and blow that queen to pieces, we get out fast. Simple plan, simple execution." Looked around at her soldiers. "I won't lie to you, some of us might not come back. They will fight hardest to protect their queen, but we knew the risks when we signed up. We knew what being human meant." The soldiers nodded. They understood. "One more thing," added, her voice softening just slightly. "They are watching. The whole damn galaxy is watching. Let's show them what Earth's children can do." The march to the hive took 6 hours. 6 hours of constant fighting through infested territory. The creatures attacked in waves, endless waves, but the humans never stopped moving. They rotated their positions, covered each other's backs, and pushed forward step by bloody step. Found herself fighting next to Captain, the tactical officer who had planned the entire assault. Was older, calmer, and fought with precise efficiency rather than wild aggression. "You doing okay, Private?" asked as she cut down a that had gotten too close. "Yes, ma'am," fired her rifle in short bursts, conserving ammunition. "This is actually kind of exciting." Laughed, a short, surprised sound. "Most people would call this terrifying." "Well, sure, but also exciting. Is that weird?" "No, Private, that's just human." Back on Station Prime, the debate continued. Doctor had been asked to provide a medical briefing to the Accord representatives, explaining human capabilities. She stood before the assembled aliens with the tired patience of someone who had given this explanation many times before. "Human endurance is a product of our evolutionary history," she said, displaying images of Earth's various environments. "We evolved as persistence hunters. We could not run faster than our prey, so we simply followed them until they collapsed from exhaustion. Humans can run for hours, even days, without stopping. Our bodies are designed to keep going long after others would have given up." "Impossible," clicked. "No organism can sustain such effort." "With respect, I am standing before you as proof that it is very possible." His tone remained professional. "Additionally, humans have high pain tolerance, rapid healing abilities, and the capacity to function effectively even with severe injuries. We can consume a wide variety of foods, including many that are toxic to other species. We can survive in extreme temperatures, low oxygen environments, and high radiation zones." She paused, letting her words sink in. "Earth did not produce warriors because we chose violence. Earth produced survivors because our world gave us no other option. We had to be strong or we died. We had to adapt or we died. We had to help each other or we all died." She looked around the hall. "That is why my people answered the distress call, because we remember what it means to struggle for survival, and we do not turn away from those who need help." The hall was silent. Then Admiral's face appeared on the main display, transmitting directly from his ship above. "This is Admiral to the Galactic Accord Council. I have been informed that you have ordered my fleet to withdraw. I am respectfully declining that order. Surged forward. You cannot decline. The Accord has authority over all military operations in civilized space. The Accord had authority, replied calmly, but the Accord chose not to exercise that authority when a member species was dying. My people chose differently. We will leave when they are safe, not before. This is an act of war. No, this is an act of mercy. You might not recognize it because you have forgotten what mercy looks like. Eyes were cold. Now, if you will excuse me, my soldiers are about to enter the hive. I have more important things to do than argue with politicians. The transmission cut off. The human forces reached the hive entrance. It was a massive hole in the ground, big enough to swallow a building, with darkness stretching endlessly below. Looked at her soldiers, they looked back at her. Into the dark, she said. And down they went. The tunnels were alive. Walls of organic matter pulsed with strange bioluminescent fluid. The air was thick and hot, filled with spores that made breathing difficult even through filtered masks. Strange sounds echoed from every direction, clicking, scraping, the wet movement of countless bodies in the dark. Sergeant Major led her soldiers deeper into the hive. Their lights cut through the darkness, revealing horrors at every turn. Organisms clung to the walls, watching with empty eyes before attacking in sudden bursts of violence. Contact right, someone shouted. The squad opened fire, bodies fell, more took their place. Private stayed close to her unit, rifle raised, trying to watch every shadow at once. She had trained for combat. She had practiced in simulations. Nothing had prepared her for this, the smell, the heat, the constant feeling that death was one wrong step away. But she kept moving. That was what humans did. Movement ahead, Captain reported, checking her scanner. Massive heat signature. We're getting close to the Queen's chamber. Nodded grimly. Plant the charges along the way. If we don't make it to the center, at least we'll bring down as much of this hell as we can. The soldiers moved efficiently, attaching explosive charges to the organic support structures of the hive. Each one was powerful enough to collapse a city block. They planned to set off dozens of them at once. Then everything went wrong. They attacked from everywhere. They burst through the walls, dropped from the ceiling, swarmed up from holes in the floor. It was not like the fighting on the surface. It was chaos, absolute chaos in the dark. Defensive positions, roared, stay together. But staying together was impossible. The sheer number of pushed the humans apart, breaking their formation, separating them into small groups fighting for survival. Found herself pushed down a side tunnel by the crush of bodies. She fired until her rifle clicked empty, then switched to her sidearm. When that ran dry too, she pulled her combat knife and kept fighting. A knocked her to the ground. She stabbed it through the head, rolled, stabbed another. Hot alien blood splashed across her armor. She could hear her somewhere in the distance, their gunfire and screams mixing with the endless clicking of the swarm. Then silence, was alone. She stood in a small chamber, surrounded by the bodies of she had killed. Her breath came in ragged gasps. Her hands shook. She was 19 years old and alone in the heart of an alien hive, and she was absolutely terrified. But she was also still alive, and she had a job to do. Checked her equipment. She still had 6 explosive charges. According to her scanner, she was actually closer to the Queen's chamber than her unit had been. If she moved fast, she could plant the charges herself. She started walking. The deeper tunnels were worse. The walls seemed to close in around her. The air grew hotter, harder to breathe. Organisms moved in the shadows, watching her but not attacking. They were waiting, guarding the Queen. Began to hum. It was an old song her mother used to sing when she was scared as a child. The sound of her own voice made her feel less alone. Then the humming became singing. Soft words in Korean, barely above a whisper carrying through the alien dark. She did not know if they could hear her. She did not care. The song was for her to remind herself that she was still human, still alive, still fighting. She found the first junction and planted a charge, then another, then a third. On the surface, Admiral watched the tactical display with growing worry. The signals from the ground team were scattered and confused. Casualties were mounting. Several soldiers were listed as missing. "Admiral," Lieutenant said quietly, "we're losing too many. Should we order a retreat?" His hands gripped his command chair until his knuckles turned white. Every instinct told him to pull his people out to save who he could. But he knew his soldiers. He knew what they would choose. "No," he said finally. "We finish this. Contact Sergeant Major. Tell her to push for the Queen's chamber, everything we have." Deep in the hive, received the message. She had lost 12 soldiers already. 12 good men and women who had followed her into the dark and would never see the sun again. "You heard the Admiral," she told the survivors. "We end this, now." They pushed forward with desperate fury. They threw everything at them, but the humans would not be stopped. They climbed over bodies, fought through walls of living enemies, and kept moving toward the center. Found in the pre-chamber to the Queen's nest, the young private was fighting alone against a wave of guards, her combat knife dark with alien blood. A spine stuck out of her leg, but she was still standing, still fighting. "Private," shouted, cutting her way through this position. "Sergeant Major," his face lit up with relief. "I planted 4 charges on the way here. We just need to get the rest into the chamber." "Good work, soldier," looked at the wound in his leg. "Can you move?" "I can move." Together, they entered the Queen's chamber. The Queen was massive, a bloated, pulsing thing the size of a building, surrounded by thousands of guardian organisms. She was the heart of the swarm, the source of every that had devastated. And she was afraid, could see it in how the Queen recoiled, how her guardians clustered closer. The swarm had never faced anything like humans before. "Plant the charges," ordered. "I'll hold them off." She charged directly at the guardian, screaming a wordless battle cry. The creatures swarmed her, but she did not slow down. Her weapon roared. Her fists swung. She fought like a demon from old Earth legends. Limped toward the Queen, planting charges as fast as she could. The pain in her leg was blinding, but she pushed through it. Just a little more. Just a few more steps. The last charge clicked into place, activated the timer, and turned to run. A guardian hit her from behind. She went down hard, feeling something crack in her chest. Through blurring vision, she saw fighting her way toward her, saw more soldiers arriving from the tunnels, saw the beautiful chaos of humanity refusing to die. Reached her, strong arms lifted her up. "Everybody out," screamed. "Move, move, move." They ran. The surviving soldiers ran through the tunnels, carrying their wounded, dragging each other toward the surface. Behind them, the charges counted down. They reached open air just as the world exploded. The hive collapsed. The Queen died. Across all of organisms suddenly stopped moving, their connection to the hive mind severed. They fell where they stood, lifeless and empty. It was over. Looked down at in her arms. The young private was unconscious, her face pale, her breathing shallow, but she was breathing. Medics shouted, "I need a medic here." Above them, the human ships began their descent, bringing doctors and supplies and hope. 47 humans had entered the hive. 32 came out. They would never forget the price that was paid for their survival. 3 months passed. Was healing. The scars of the invasion would take generations to fade, but they were alive. Their floating cities still sparkled above the clouds. Their children still played in the crystal forests. Because of the humans, they had a future. Admiral stood on the observation deck of his flagship, looking down at the world he had helped save. Tomorrow, the fleet would return to Earth. Their mission was complete. "Admiral," Lieutenant appeared at his side. "The ambassador is requesting to speak with you again." Sighed. Ambassador had spoken to him almost every day since the battle ended. She kept trying to find ways to thank him, to repay the debt. He kept telling her that no payment was necessary. "Put her through." His holographic image appeared before him. She looked different than she had 3 months ago. There was strength in her eyes now, a confidence that had not been there before. "Admiral, I wanted to inform you that I will be traveling to Earth next week, as the first official ambassador to your world." Raised an eyebrow. The Accord approved this. The Accord no longer controls what to do. We have chosen our own path, and that path leads to Earth. A smile tugged at the corner of his mouth. Earth is not like Ambassador. You might find it difficult. I am counting on it. His bioluminescent patterns flickered with what had learned to recognize as humor. I have spent my whole life being protected from difficulty. Look where that got my people. It is time we learn to be stronger. Nodded slowly. Then I look forward to welcoming you to our world. On Earth, the fleet was greeted as heroes. Crowds filled the streets of every major city, cheering and waving. The government wanted to give admiral medals, parades, speeches before grand assemblies. He refused them all. Instead, he visited the families of the 47 soldiers who did not come home. He sat in their living rooms, held their hands, and told them how bravely their loved ones had fought. It took him 3 weeks to visit every family. It was the hardest thing he had ever done. Sergeant Major received a promotion. She complained loudly about having to wear a dress uniform, about having to sit through ceremonies, about everything except the thing that actually bothered her, that 15 of the dead had been under her command. Captain took over his old position as Ground Forces Commander. She accepted the responsibility quietly and promised to honor those who had trained her. And Private recovered. The young soldier spent 2 months in the hospital, healing from her injuries. The spine had done serious damage to her leg, and the fall in the Queen's chamber had broken 4 ribs. But human bodies were stubborn things. Walked out of the hospital on her own 2 feet, limping slightly but smiling like always. She was awarded the Medal of Valor, the highest military honor Earth could bestow. At the ceremony, they asked her to give a speech. She had never been good at speeches, but she tried her best. I was scared the whole time, she admitted, looking out at the crowd. In the tunnels, in the dark, surrounded by those creatures, I was so scared I could barely breathe, but I kept moving. Not because I'm brave, because there were people counting on me, because my friends were fighting beside me, because that's what humans do. She paused, searching for the right words. We're not special because we're strong or fast or tough. We're special because we never give up on each other. On Earth, we learned a long time ago that we survive together or we don't survive at all. And maybe that's what the galaxy needs to learn too. Ambassador arrived on Earth 2 weeks later. The planet terrified her. The gravity made her feel heavy and clumsy. The air burned her throat with its strange thickness. She watched humans walk casually through rain that would have killed in minutes, eat food that would have been poison to any sensible species, and play games that involved throwing themselves at each other at high speeds. But she also saw beauty. She saw cities full of life and art and music. She saw children laughing in parks. She saw families sharing meals. She saw humans helping strangers without expecting anything in return. Earth was a world of death, and it had produced people who chose life. 1 year later, stood before the Galactic Accord Grand Assembly. Representatives from 200 species filled the hall, all of them watching the small blue at the podium. I came here today to propose that humanity be admitted to the Accord as a full member, she said. Her voice was calm and clear. I know many of you are afraid of them. I was afraid too once, but I have lived on their world. I have seen who they truly are. She looked around the hall, meeting the eyes of those who had abandoned her people. When was dying, you offered us deep concern. The humans offered their lives. 47 of them died fighting for people they had never met. 47 families lost someone they loved so that my species could survive. Her bioluminescent patterns flared with emotion. They came from a world that tried to kill them every day, and instead of becoming monsters, they became protectors. They did not ask what they would gain. They asked how they could help. This is not the behavior of dangerous beasts to be quarantined. This is the behavior of the best neighbors any species could hope for. She straightened, her voice growing stronger. We called for aid, they answered, and I, for one, am grateful. The question before this assembly today is simple. Will you continue to fear humanity, or will you welcome them as the heroes they have proven themselves to be? The hall was silent. Then, from the back, from the small human delegation that had been allowed to observe but not speak, someone started clapping. Lieutenant, still in her fleet uniform, was bringing her hands together slowly and steadily. Others joined. Sergeant Major stood and clapped with fierce pride. Admiral rose beside her, his face showing the smallest smile. Private, walking with only a slight limp now, clapped so enthusiastically that tears streamed down her face. And then, like a wave, the rest of the assembly joined them. Species that had feared humans, species that had doubted them, species that had voted to quarantine them, all of them rising, all of them acknowledging what humanity had done. For the first time in galactic history, the assembly applauded. The vote was unanimous. Earth was admitted to the Galactic Accord. The resolution was officially titled The Precedent, recognizing humanity's right to respond to distress calls anywhere in the galaxy. That night there was a celebration on Station Prime. Humans and dozens of other species mingled together, sharing food and drinks and stories. Old fears began to fade. New friendships began to form. Found by the observation window, looking out at the stars. Private said softly, "I never properly thanked you. You risked everything in that hive. You saved my entire species." Shook her head. "I just did my job, Ambassador, that's all." No, reached out and took the human's hand in her own. "You did so much more. You showed the galaxy what humanity truly is." Squeezed back gently, careful not to hurt the fragile. "We're not that complicated, Ambassador. When someone needs help, we help. That's been our way since we were huddling around fires trying to survive the night." She smiled her bright, unbreakable smile. "Welcome to the family." Far away, in a distant corner of the galaxy, another species sent a distress call into the void. They were small and weak and had no military. They expected no one to answer. But somewhere in the stars, human ships changed course. Because that was what humans did. And the galaxy was finally beginning to understand.